Bubba Wallace wrecks and fights Kyle Larson after Larson ran him up the track and into the wall off turn 4 on lap 96. TJ, spot on, spot off.
That first of all, that was not a fight. That was not a fight. I am spot off for the reaction. And if Freddie is not this way, you are going to move into my what an idiot winner. But you know, I do think Bubba had a reason to be mad. I think we're racing and accidents happen, and it doesn't give you a right to tee off on somebody like that. Especially at these tracks where we're going super fast and, you know, we're dealing with injuries to people, and you're severely raising that risk when you pull a move like that. That's the problem I got with it. And I feel like there was so many steps forward taken this year to being a legitimate contender, you know, week in and week out. And then something like this happens and it knocks the wind out of your sails kind of. I mean, we've been on the receiving end of Bubba making a mistake. Bubba made a mistake, wrecked us. Does that give Brad a right to go tee off on him? I don't think so. But we're all racing. We're all trying. I don't think Kyle tried to wreck him. I don't think, that's, you got to, you know, as well as anybody, these things, if you can pass a guy, you got to get there. I mean, it's a huge gain if you can. But obviously he overstepped his bounds a little bit, put Bubba in a bad spot, maybe force him into the wall a little bit. But I don't think that deserves to be right hooked on a straightaway.
Do you suspend him?
No, I don't think you suspend him. This isn't the first time this has happened this year, but I do think that the severity of it is pretty bad at a 1.5 mile track like that, where we've been dealing with incidents. And I mean, we're not doing this. Isn't a road course or something where you're slower and you know, I just think it's a bad scenario. I don't think it's right to do that.
I personally praised Kyle Larson years ago about how at that moment in time I felt like he was the show. I felt like he was the most exciting thing on the racetrack. And yesterday he made one of those Kyle Larson moves that gets you excited. He shot 3 wide to the bottom. He did not get clear in 3 and 4. And Kyle Larson did something that we don't see him do a lot. He ran out of talent. And he pushed Bubba up the hill and into the wall. And it was in my mind, a racing incident, right? Take it for no more, no less than that. Did it screw Bubba? Yeah. Did it end his day? I don't know, because with those bodies, they're so damn tough. Man, they'll come right back. I mean, I saw guys at the end of the race pounding the wall. I mean, A.J. Allmendinger ran McDowell into the wall in a very similar fashion.
Truex off of 2 early in the race. I'm like, oh, he's going to be done.
Smoked it off of 2. But if you don't break anything under the body, Bubba could continue on. He was leading the race, stage 1, right? Had a fast car. And then, man, he lost his mind.
That's what I think.
And when he lost his mind, he made a lot of mistakes. The first one was he took a left and he took out himself and Kyle Larson. Well, I'm going to tell you one thing. If I'm going to wreck somebody, the last thing I want to do is wreck myself. Then the second mistake he made was he walked across a racetrack that is supposed to be closed. After the dirt track incident where the guy lost his life, we had a rule that you cannot be on the racing surface unless it is a full-blown your car's on fire emergency. Then he decided he was going to go confront Kyle Larson, to where he started pushing him repeatedly, and obviously Kyle wanted nothing to do with that, right? The fourth thing was he went on the interview. I was told, I didn't see this part, then he said his steering broke. Are you buying that, TJ?
No, 100%.
I'm not buying that either.
The wheel turned left after he went straight.
So here's where I'm at on this whole thing. It's the timing for Bubba Wallace couldn't be worse. It's been a long time since he had what I would consider, Freddie, a bad look. The last time I remember him having a bad look, and look, they all have this happen, was when he did a little thing with Alex Bowman when Bowman was sitting down by the car. I felt like that was a bad look for Bubba Wallace, and it probably took a little bit of a hit on his reputation, right? But when I look at this thing and the way this whole thing played out, I look at a guy, and Freddie's one of my best friends. I think the world of Bubba Wallace. I love seeing him do well. It's a guy who lost his temper. He did not have the mental fortitude to manage the situation properly. And not only did his first mistake happen, but he made several other mistakes after the fact. And the timing couldn't be worse. What I mean by that is the group chat that the drivers are all in is constantly about safety. I think Christopher Bell, look, he got screwed. He was an innocent victim in this whole thing. There's no way Toyota's happy with how that went down. But had Christopher Bell not been there, I think Kyle Larson is going to back his car into the wall. And that's the worst angle, it appears, based on what we're told, that you can hit with this particular car. So I look at this as, if this were football, TJ, I think it would be ruled a targeting penalty. And targeting has consequence. What are those consequences? I don't know in our world because they're so different. Jeff Gordon wrecked Clint Boyer on purpose at Phoenix, and that was for a championship year, and NASCAR didn't do a damn thing. This is no different. Unfortunately, the racetrack is faster. Unfortunately, this car doesn't appear to be as safe, but I don't know how NASCAR should react here. But if they don't react in some way, shape, or form, it's like it's open hunting season on each other.
Yeah.
And I don't want to see that. So I am spot off for the whole thing.
Yeah, me too. Listen, Bubba's my guy. Bubba's been my guy for 12 years. I'm getting ready to sign a contract. Bubba's going to be my guy for a few more years. And if Bubba got out of that car yesterday and said, I intentionally right hooked Kyle Larson because he ran me in the fence, there'd be nothing I can say on this show to defend him. We've said it on here 1,000 times. You can't do that. Obviously, Bubba got out and said what he said about the steering braking. Is that a lesson learned from the past? You just seen Noah Gragson admitted to wrecking somebody on purpose at, where was that, Road America, and he got his fine and suspension. Bubba got the only fine and suspension, or fine and loss of points for intentionally spinning because he admitted it. So you can't ever get out and say, yeah, I did that on purpose. You know, whether you choose to believe him or not, that's one thing. But, like we've talked about on here before, you can't do that. You know, it is what it is. These guys in the moments, there's really no excuse for it. Obviously, like you said, we had a fast race car. If we're running 20th and this happens, maybe that don't happen. You don't know. I mean, we hit the wall a ton off of 4, and I don't know what was broke, what wasn't broke. Very easily could have broke a toe link. We've seen that happen multiple times this year. But there's, that scenario there. You can sit here and make excuses for it. There's really no excuse for ever right hooking anybody. You bring up the Bowman incident. The reason why the Bowman incident happened, Bowman right hooked us. Michael McDowell right hooked us into the pit gate at Bristol, and we were critical of it then too. So it is what it is. Like I said, there's nothing I can sit here and make any excuse for Bubba. These guys in the moments, it's not like you talk about mental fortitude if you want. We've seen this happen 1,000 times, and there are 1,000 different scenarios, 1,000 different racetracks. We're going to see it again 1,000 times, 1,000 different racetracks, because these guys, you don't consciously think, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to hook this guy into the fence. You're just thinking, I guess I got ran in the fence with my very fast race car, my shit's wrecked,
You're pissed.
and I'm pissed off. These guys don't think about what's getting ready to happen. They're just reacting, and sometimes they overreact. And maybe, listen, if you want to believe it's intentional, then it was an overreaction, I think. But, it is what it is. As far as everything else, a suspension, if they were to suspend Bubba, it'd be unprecedented. They've never suspended anybody for wrecking somebody on the racetrack unless it was under yellow. Right hooking
that's not
somebody.
really true.
Matt Kenseth.
Okay, he waited for somebody and then wrecked him.
The difference in there, and I mean, people are out there talking about it, right? Matt Kenseth, 2-race suspension. The difference for that was Logano, and I know TJ's defended him for this. I was at Kansas watching in turn 4, and they wrecked in turn 1. Logano wrecked Matt Kenseth, and he wrecked him because he was tired of riding behind him. He run into the wall. That's what happened, there in that deal. And then obviously Matt waited a couple weeks when his playoff hopes were over. He fenced him under yellow, and that was a 2-race suspension. Look, Hocevar's done worse all year. He's done worse.
He's changed the outcome for.
He did the same thing at IRP. Somewhere else he wrecked a lap car to keep him going. Richmond.
If you're not suspending Hocevar, I don't know how you suspend Bubba.
I would.
But I'm going to tell you guys something. I mean, that George Strait song comes to mind. I'd like to have that one back. Like Bubba's gonna eventually have to sit down and watch this replay. And at some point, when he watches that replay, because it's going to be on all week, he's not going to be able to get away from this thing unless he throws his phone in the toilet. At some point, he's going to watch that replay and he's going to be like, "Man, I f***ed up real bad. I did what I did, but then I continued to make it worse." And I think that's where it's going to be a learning experience for him. And man, you got to give a shout out to Kyle Larson. Talk about mental fortitude. I mean, he's got a guy shoving him repeatedly. He doesn't make one aggressive move toward him. He goes on the press and said, "Man, I caused a wreck." Like he owned it. I think you saw a lot of I don't know, maturity in Kyle and the way he handled that situation. And all I can say is, man, I hope those guys make up this week. Like Kyle Larson is one of the greatest for our sport right now. Bubba Wallace is one of the greatest for our sport right now. I think Bubba gets booed tremendously this weekend in Homestead. I think he gets booed worse at Martinsville, and at Phoenix, I think he gets booed even worse than he did the first 2 weeks. Like, I think Bubba's got to make peace with this quick, man, because something like this, Freddie, it can weigh on you. I've been around drivers where they made mistakes, and it took them a very long time to put it past them.
I mean, there's only one person here. I mean, you can look at whatever you want to look at. There's only one person here that knows whether or not that's intentional, and it's Bubba. And like you said, if I know Bubba, like I've said, Bubba is basically family to me, and I know Bubba well enough to know that if that was intentional, he knows in his heart of hearts whether it was or not. He regrets it, or he knows it was wrong at least. But that is what it is. That ship has sailed. Like I said, it's not a conscious. I don't think it's a conscious maneuver.
Now.
Yeah, and listen, you talk about whether or not he compounded the deal by saying this shit's broken. Listen, that's what you got to say. It is what it is. You've already seen what they're going to do to you if you go out.
You could just say.
Well, you have to do an interview.
You could ignore it, but I'm saying you could just say, I got in a wreck, I didn't have control of my car or whatever. Yeah. But
that's what he's saying, essentially.
But the problem is you can go back and look at the wheel going straight and then it go hard left. If it's broken, does it turn left? I mean, it looked like it worked pretty good to me. I don't even really, whatever that part. This was an opportunity for him to get there and be like, just be like, look, we had a really fast car today. He was running up front again. He's showing that he belongs up there, and this was a chance to. You got wrecked by Kyle Larson. If you get wrecked by Kyle Larson, you're probably on the right side of the field. You know what I mean? Like you're in the right area. This was a chance to get out and be like, hey, I guess Kyle got loose or got tight or whatever, put us in defense, and ended our day.
I would imagine there's a lot of people who are Bubba Wallace diehard supporters that are disappointed in what happened yesterday. And I'm telling you, man, I've been in this scenario with some of my guys. Like, Bubba has got to make peace with this fast. He's got to make peace with his owners. He's got to make peace with Kyle Larson. He's got to make peace with Christopher Bell. He's got to make peace with himself. The guy's already come out before and said he had anxiety issues. Like, this is something that can weigh on you for a long time, because you're going to relive that moment where you made all those decisions to do those things. And I hope that he has the right people around him to make peace with it fast. Because if he don't, it can f*** your career up for a while. I've seen it happen. And it's not a fun train to be on.
I know you want to sell your home. Do it with our friends at OfferPad. Go get a cash offer right now at OfferPad.com.